The Galaxy Council gathered in their shining hall, a place filled with towering alien leaders from countless worlds. Their eyes burned with anger as the name of Earth was spoken. For years they had watched humanity grow, invent, and rise too quickly, too boldly, too fearlessly. Humans were different from other species. They had fire in their hearts, and even in the face of fear, they refused to kneel. The Council called them reckless, dangerous, and uncontrollable. And now the decision was made. Earth would be erased, wiped out before humans could grow strong enough to challenge the stars. A massive armada was assembled, fleets of ships larger than mountains, armies numbering in the billions, war machines that had conquered dozens of worlds. From the cold void of space, the order was given: end the human race within hours. The alien generals smiled with cruel delight. For them, it was not a war, it was a cleaning job, the extermination of an upstart species. The Council believed humans would cry and beg for mercy. They believed Earth would burn without resistance. On Earth, panic spread like wildfire. The leaders of nations received transmissions from the Council, cold and merciless, demanding surrender. People looked to the skies and saw the shadows of alien ships already drawing closer. Fear and chaos gripped the world. Soldiers prepared weapons, families hid underground, cities prayed for a miracle. But in the middle of this storm, there was one person who did not tremble. A human woman stood silently, her eyes calm, her breath steady, as if she had been waiting for this moment all her life. No one knew her name, no one knew her past. She lived like an ordinary human, but inside her burned something extraordinary. When others ran for cover, she walked out into the open fields, her face turned toward the blackened sky. She watched the fleets descend, her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. Around her, people whispered, "She is mad, she is walking toward death." But deep inside, she whispered back to herself, "This is what I was meant for." The first alien broadcasts filled the air. Giant holograms of alien generals appeared above Earth's cities, their voices booming across every channel. "Humans, you had your chance, but you chose arrogance. Today your species ends." Crowds fell to their knees, hopelessness spreading like poison. But far from the cities, far from the screams, the woman stood alone, and she felt no fear. She could feel the universe stir inside her, a force older than the Council, older than their armies. Her heart beat in rhythm with something hidden deep within Earth itself. She raised her hands slowly. The ground beneath her feet trembled. The air grew heavy, as if the world itself was answering her call. She did not speak loudly, but her whisper carried across the winds, "Not if I stand." At that moment, something unseen rippled across the skies. Animals grew silent, the air turned still, and even the alien scouts hovering above Earth felt a strange pressure weighing on their ships. They reported back to their generals with unease. "There is a disturbance. One human stands unmoved." The generals laughed, mocking the thought that a single woman could matter against their legions. But deep in their hearts, some of them felt an old, buried fear, a fear their ancestors once carried when they first looked upon the human spirit. The woman's eyes glowed faintly as the first wave of alien transports broke through the clouds. Millions of troops prepared to land, armed with weapons that had conquered countless civilizations. The Council expected Earth to fall within hours, but this woman stood ready to face them, not with armies, not with fleets, but with a power that had slept too long within humanity. Our silence was louder than screams. Her stillness was sharper than blades. Far above, in the Council chamber, an old alien archivist spoke words no one wished to hear. He opened a forgotten scroll and his voice shook. "There was once a prophecy. It spoke of a day when a single human would rise, when all the armies of the galaxy would break before her." The Council scoffed, dismissing it as myth, but the seeds of doubt had already been planted. Down below on Earth, the woman took her first step forward, the step that would decide the fate of her world. She looked at the sky filled with fire and metal, and she whispered again, not to the Council, not to the aliens, but to humanity itself, "You are not alone." And with that, the storm had truly begun. The skies above Earth turned dark, not from clouds, but from shadows of alien ships stretching across the horizon. Children pointed upward, crying in terror as the blue sky was swallowed by endless fleets, from deserts to mountains, from cities to oceans. People looked up and felt the weight of extinction pressing down on them. The Council's fleet had arrived, and it was larger than anything humanity had ever seen. Thousands of carriers, millions of soldiers, and weapons forged in stars, all aimed at one small blue planet. Alien generals stood tall within their command decks, their scales, claws, and cold eyes reflecting cruel satisfaction. For them, this was not a battle, it was a hunt. Earth was prey, and humans were nothing more than fragile meat. They expected tears, surrender, and desperation, and they relished the thought of crushing a species that dared to resist their rule. But what they saw instead unsettled them. On their screens far below, one human woman walked into the open fields, calm, unshaken, her figure small but her presence impossible to ignore. Reports flooded the alien channels. Target identified, she shows no fear. Primitive species behavior, insignificant threat. But the commanders grew uneasy because their instincts told them no prey should walk into the jaws of predators so willingly. Still, orders were orders. The first wave was released. Giant dropships split from the motherships and plunged toward Earth, each carrying thousands of armored warriors. The sound of their engines roared across the land, shaking mountains and splitting the sky with fire. On Earth, soldiers prepared their defenses, though they knew it was hopeless. Missiles and tanks rolled into position. Jets took flight, but against fleets of this scale, human weapons were pebbles thrown at storms. Civilians huddled underground, praying, crying, whispering the name of the mysterious woman they had seen. Some believed she was a symbol of hope. Others believed she was only a doomed fool. But all eyes turned to her as the alien ships landed, tearing craters into the earth. The ground shook as towering alien warriors marched out, their armor glowing with cruel energy. They were twice the size of humans, their claws sharper than steel, their weapons humming with death. One general stepped forward, his voice amplified through alien machines. "Human woman, you dare stand before us? You will be the first to die, and your world will be the next." The alien soldiers laughed, a sound like grinding stones, echoing across the battlefield, but the woman did not move. Her eyes locked onto the generals, her silence more dangerous than 1,000 threats. A strange energy shimmered in the air around her, invisible to most, but heavy enough that even the soldiers felt it press against their chests. They shifted uneasily, claws tightening on weapons, instincts warning them of danger they could not name. The general snarled, raising his weapon high, ready to strike her down. But before he could, the earth beneath his feet trembled, cracks spreading like lightning across the ground. The woman raised her hand slowly, and the air itself seemed to freeze. Every sound, bidhan, very movement, every breath fell silent. The alien soldiers stopped mid-step, their bodies suddenly heavy, their weapons trembling in their hands. The general's laughter died in his throat, replaced by confusion, then fear. For the first time, the predators felt like prey. And then, the impossible happened. Without touching a single weapon, without firing a single shot, the woman brought down the first wave. The soldiers screamed as their armor crushed inward, their weapons shattered into dust, and their mighty war cries turned into silence. The dropships that had landed with thunder now exploded without flame, collapsing into nothingness as if erased from reality. Millions of watching humans gasped in disbelief, their fear replaced with awe. They saw what the Council refused to believe. One human woman was holding back armies with nothing but her will. High above, alien commanders watched the destruction unfold, their control rooms filled with chaos, alarms blaring, officers shouting, "This is not possible. Our weapons are failing. Our soldiers are vanishing." Another screamed, "It is her. She is disrupting our power. She is..." The commander slammed his claw down, silencing them. But even he could not hide the terror in his eyes. On Earth, the woman lowered her hand, and the field was quiet again. The alien general who had mocked her now lay in ruins, his massive form crumbled like sand. She whispered softly, her voice carried on the wind, "You should not have come here." Her words were not shouted, yet they reached every soldier, every camera, every frightened human watching from hidden shelters. The message was clear. Earth was not defenseless. But the Council was not finished. above the planet, fleets gathered tighter, their commanders enraged. Send more, send everything, erase her, erase Earth, they roared. And so the second wave began, larger, deadlier, more determined. But down below, the woman stood ready, her calm face unbroken, her eyes shining with power. She was one against millions, but her presence alone made the galaxy tremble. The storm of war had begun, and she was its center. The second wave of alien armies thundered down from the skies, their ships blotting out the sun. Thousands of dropships screamed through the clouds, their engines burning like falling stars. The ground shook as they landed across fields and cities, iron feet stomping into Earth's soil. From inside, rivers of alien warriors poured out, their roars shaking the air, their weapons glowing with cruel fire. The Council had sent legions, and they believed no single human could stand against this storm. Alien generals sneered, convinced the first wave had only been careless. This time, they shouted, this time we will grind her into the dust. Their voices carried across battlefields, promising death. But even as millions of soldiers marched forward, there she was, the woman, standing alone. She did not run, she did not hide. Her calm presence was like a mountain against the flood. The aliens surrounded her, armored giants towering over her, claws and weapons ready. They laughed, mocking her silence. Is this your champion, humans? A woman who says nothing, who does nothing? But their laughter faded when she finally moved. With a breath as soft as wind, she raised her hand again and the world obeyed. The air grew heavy, vibrating with unseen energy. Birds dropped from the sky, rivers rippled though no wind blew. Stones rose slowly into the air as if gravity itself forgot its purpose. The alien soldiers shifted uneasily, their armor suddenly too heavy, their weapons shaking in their claws. They tried to shout commands, but their voices cracked with fear. Something ancient, something primal pressed against their hearts. Predators of the galaxy now felt the same terror they once fed to others. And then, the strike came, not of bullets, not of blades, but of sheer force, invisible poetic dare. We're rippled out from her like a tidal wave. The first line of soldiers shattered, their armor folding inward, their massive bodies collapsing like broken puppets. The second line tried to fire their weapons, but energy bolts curved away, exploding back into their ranks. In seconds, thousands lay in ruins, their screams swallowed by silence. Alien generals barked orders frantically. Surround her, crush her, overwhelm her. But no order could save them. Her movements were small, graceful, almost effortless. Yet every gesture bent reality. A sweep of her arm, and entire war machines flipped into the air. A single step forward and the ground split open, swallowing tanks and soldiers alike. Everywhere she walked, destruction followed, precise and merciless. Humans hiding in bunkers watched through shaky cameras, their hearts pounding with disbelief. They saw their enemy, creatures once thought invincible, collapsing before one human woman. For the first time, hope sparked like fire across the world. Whispers spread, she is real, she is fighting for us. Children stopped crying, soldiers gripped their weapons tighter, ready to stand again. Because if she could face them, maybe humanity was not doomed. High above, alien commanders stared at their screens in horror. This cannot be, she is unarmed, she is one, and yet. One officer dared to whisper the word no one wanted to hear, prophecy. The commander struck him down in rage, but even his eyes betrayed fear. For deep in the Council's archives, there were old warnings, stories of a human who would rise when the galaxy moved to destroy Earth, a single defender who would turn armies to dust. And now that story lived before their eyes, on the battlefield. The woman faced the alien general of the second wave. He was taller than the others, his armor black and gold, his weapon humming with ancient energy. He snarled, "You may break soldiers, but you cannot face me." The ground cracked as he charged, his massive weapon slashing through the air. The woman did not flinch, she did not Ven stepped back. Her eyes glowed brighter, and with a single glance the general froze mid-strike. His weapon crumbled into dust in his hand, his armor cracked, and his body collapsed with a scream that echoed across the battlefield. Silence followed, an unnatural silence broken only by the sound of alien soldiers retreating. Fear, true fear, spread through their ranks for the first time in their lives. They had crushed countless worlds, enslaved countless species, but never had they seen one person reduce their armies to nothing. The woman lowered her hand again, her expression calm, but her words sharp as blades. "Tell your council," she whispered. "This is only the beginning." Her voice traveled through alien comms, through human broadcasts, through every channel across the stars. It was not just a warning, it was a promise. And for the first time in history, the galaxy trembled at the voice of a single human. Above Earth, fleets burned brighter, commanders screaming in desperation. "Send more, send everything. She cannot face the full strength of the council." But deep inside, even they knew the truth. The first strike had been made, and the council had already lost something greater than armies. They had lost the illusion of power. The woman stood alone, her figure small against the smoking ruins, but her presence vast as the sky itself. She looked up toward the stars, her calm voice whispering again. "You will remember this day," and the galaxy did. The battlefield lay in ruins. The alien second wave broken, their generals scattered into ash. The world trembled. Yet one human woman still stood untouched, her calm presence as steady as the earth beneath her feet. But questions spread like fire. Who was she? Where had she come from? And how could one human hold such power? Even the bravest soldiers whispered in fear and wonder, "She cannot be ordinary. No human can do this." High above in the chambers of the Galaxy Council, panic had begun to replace arrogance. They had sent millions, and millions had fallen. They had sent generals, and generals had crumbled. The counselors snarled at each other, demanding answers, blaming commanders. But one ancient archivist raised his trembling voice. "It is her," he said, "the one the warning spoke of." The hall fell silent. Few remembered the prophecy, fewer dared to speak it, yet the words were etched deep into the forgotten scrolls. When the galaxy unites to end Earth, one human will rise. Her strength will be greater than legions, her spirit sharper than any blade, her name erased from history until the day she awakens. The council laughed once when they read it, dismissing it as myth. But now myth had become reality. Their greatest fleets had fallen. Their strongest warriors had been erased in minutes, and one truth began to seep into their hearts like poison. Humanity was not weak, not anymore. On Earth, the woman walked alone through the smoking ruins, her eyes glowing faintly in the dusk. The survivors who saw her could not look away. She was both terrifying and beautiful. Some tried to approach, but the air around her shimmered with energy that made even brave men stumble back. She was human, and yet something more. Memories stirred within her as she walked, memories of nights filled with strange visions. As a child, she dreamed of voices that spoke from the stars, voices that told her she was chosen. She had tried to live a normal life, to hide her strength, to forget the whispers. But deep down, she had always known this day would come. She had always known the galaxy would come for Earth, and that she alone would stand in their path. The alien spies who survived the battle sent frantic reports back to their council. They searched ancient databases, hunted forgotten records, and at last found fragments of her identity, a name that had been erased, a lineage tied to some thing older than the council itself. Her blood carried echoes of a hidden force, a bond between humanity and the living fabric of the universe. It was not magic, it was not sorcery. It was something far older, a harmony between human spirit and cosmic truth, and she was the first to awaken it fully. The council tried to silence the reports, but rumors spread fast. Across the galaxy, whispers traveled from world to world. They sent armies, and one woman destroyed them. Perhaps humanity carries the spark we feared. Some species that once bowed to the council now look to Earth with new respect, some with terror, and some with hope. Back on Earth, governments struggled to decide, was she a savior or was she too dangerous? Some leaders wanted to control her, to use her power. Others wanted to protect her, to honor her, but none could deny one fact. She was the only reason Earth was still alive. The woman stood at the edge of a ruined battlefield, staring at the night sky. Stars glimmered above her, but she saw more than stars. She could feel the council's fleets gathering again, billions preparing for one final strike. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, not of arrogance, but of certainty. "They still do not understand," she whispered. "They think power is numbers, but true power is will." And yet, deep inside, even she felt doubt. Her body was strong, her spirit unbroken. But could she stand against the full weight of the council? She closed her eyes, listening, and in the silence she felt something. The earth itself, its oceans, its forests, its mountains, all pulsing with quiet life. It was as if the planet whispered back to her, lending her its strength, reminding her she was not fighting alone. She carried the weight of humanity, but she also carried the voice of Earth. Far away, the Council prepared their ultimate weapon, a war machine so ancient and monstrous that even they feared unleashing it. Forged before history, sealed for millennia, it was said to be unstoppable. If she cannot be killed by armies, the counselors growled, then let her face this. And so the order was given. The creature stirred, chains breaking after ages of silence. Its roar carried across the stars, and the galaxy shuddered at its awakening. The woman opened her eyes, her gaze steady, her breath calm. She knew something greater was coming, something more dangerous than armies. Her whisper was soft, but carried like thunder. Then let it come. The stars above Earth no longer shone with peace. They burned with the fire of engines. The largest armada in the history of the galaxy gathered at the edges of Earth's orbit. Fleets from 100 worlds. War machines forged from suns. Soldiers bred for slaughter. All united under one command. The Council had unleashed its full strength, determined to erase humanity forever. From deserts, mountains, and oceans, people looked to the sky and saw a sight no human had ever seen. Billions of lights, countless warships stretching farther than the eye could reach. The heavens were drowned in shadows, and the world trembled beneath the weight of so many enemies. Governments ordered evacuations. Soldiers prepared for battles they knew they could not win. But every whisper, every desperate hope, carried the same name, the woman. She stood alone in the ruins of the last battlefield, her hair moving with the strange wind that always followed her. Her eyes reflected the burning sky, yet her face remained calm. Around her, survivors gathered at a distance, too afraid to approach, yet unwilling to leave. They felt safer near her, even if they could not explain why. She did not look at them, she only stared upward, waiting. As though she had seen this moment in her dreams, the first waves fell, columns of alien ships broke from the armada, their cannons glowing with starfire. They rained destruction on cities, oceans boiled, mountains split, forests turned to ash. Human defenses fired back, missiles and jets screamed into the sky, but their efforts were sparks against a hurricane. The world shook as alien armies descended, their roars echoing across continents. It was no longer an invasion, it was extermination. And yet, through the chaos, she stepped forward. Her feet touched the broken earth, and the ground itself seemed to respond. Rocks rose, rivers stilled, winds circled around her as though earth itself stood beside her. She raised her hands slowly, and the very air bent under her will. The first wave of alien ships collapsed in silence. Their mighty cannons turned inward, their explosions swallowed before they could burn. The armies below roared in rage, charging forward with weapons flashing, but she moved like a storm made flesh. With each gesture, weapons melted, armor crumbled, soldiers turned to dust. Machines that had conquered dozens of worlds now lay scattered like toys. Her power grew with every breath, her strength fed by the cries of her people, by the voice of Earth itself. The galaxy watched, every world tuned to the broadcasts. Billions saw what no one believed possible, a single human woman standing against the might of the Council, and winning. But the Council was not finished. At the heart of the Armada, sealed inside chains of energy, the war machine awakened. It was no ordinary weapon, no simple beast. It was a living titan, forged in ages before the Council, built to crush entire civilizations. Its body was larger than cities, its hide black as void, its eyes burning like suns. When it roared, space itself seemed to tremble. The counselors leaned forward in their seats, their faces grim with both hope and fear. "This is the end of her," they whispered. "Nothing in the galaxy can survive the beast." The chains fell, and the Titan moved, its massive limbs tearing through fleets as though ships were dust. It did not serve the Council willingly, but it served because fear bound it, and now that fear was pointed at Earth. The woman looked up at the sky as the beast descended, her eyes narrowing but her face still calm. Her heart felt the weight of it, the sheer force of something born to erase life. For the first time, her hands trembled, not from fear of death, but from the burden of what was coming. She whispered softly, This is the true test. The beast landed with the force of falling mountains. Continents shook. Oceans rose in waves taller than buildings. Entire cities cracked under its weight. Its roar drowned out the cries of armies. Its shadow swallowed the horizon. Even alien soldiers who once felt no fear now turned away, desperate to escape its presence. And humanity, watching from shelters and bunkers, felt their hope flicker. For how could one woman face something that could devour planets? But she stood her ground, her small figure dwarfed by the Titan. The people watching saw her raise her hand once more, her eyes burning brighter than ever. The battle that followed would decide not only Earth, but the fate of the entire galaxy. And as the Titan roared again, she whispered to herself, "I fight not for power, but for humanity." The Titan stood above the ruins of Earth, a living shadow that blotted out the sky. Its roar shook the air, a sound so deep that oceans rippled and mountains cracked. Every breath from the beast carried fire and smoke. Each step it took carved craters into the soil. Alien armies scattered before it. Human shelters shook beneath it. And even fleets in orbit trembled when they felt its rage. The woman stood at the center of the chaos, her small figure looking impossibly fragile against such a monster. Yet she did not step back. Her eyes glowed brighter than the fires burning across the world. Her calm presence was a beacon, a reminder that even in the face of extinction, humanity would not kneel. Still, for the first time, she felt the true weight of her enemy pressing against her chest. The beast was not only flesh and claws, it was built from hate, forged from the fears of countless civilizations. It carried with it the strength of an age when gods of war walked the stars. The Titan roared and struck first. A claw larger than a tower ripped through the ground, shattering valleys and swallowing entire armies beneath collapsing earth. Waves of burning energy burst from its mouth, sweeping across cities, erasing everything in their path. Billions watched through screens and satellites as the beast unleashed destruction no weapon had ever matched. It was not invasion, it was annihilation. The woman raised her hands, her body trembling from the sheer force pressing against her. She pushed back, and the ground itself rose to shield her. Mountains lifting like walls, rivers boiling into steam barriers, but the Titan tore through them, breaking nature itself apart. She staggered, her breath heavy, her face pale. For the first time, blood touched her lips, and the galaxy gasped. She was powerful, yes, but not unbreakable. The council watched from their chambers, leaning forward in cruel satisfaction. At last, they hissed. The pretender bleeds. They believed victory was finally within their grasp, but in their arrogance they did not see what was awakening inside her. The woman closed her eyes, blocking out the roar of the Titan, blocking out the screams of soldiers. In the silence, she felt it again, the voice of Earth, the heartbeat of oceans, the whispers of forests, the cry of every human soul who refused to give up. Their voices poured into her, a chorus of strength, a reminder that she did not stand alone. Her hands steadied, her breath calmed, and her eyes opened with light that burned brighter than stars. The Titan lunged again, its massive body blotting out the horizon, but this time, she met it head on. She moved faster than sight, her hands slicing through the air, and the beast was thrown back, crashing into mountains, shattering peaks like glass. The ground split open, lava rising to the surface, the skies turned red with fire. The duel of legends had begun. Every strike shook the planet. When the Titan roared, storms ripped across continents. When the woman answered, the skies cleared with blazing light. She struck its claws, breaking them into shards that burned in the air. She caught its tail, twisting it until the beast screamed. But still it fought, every wound healing, every scream followed by new rage. It was endless, unstoppable, a monster that had ended worlds before hers. The woman faltered, her knees buckling, her energy fading. The beast loomed above her, its maw glowing with death, ready to finish what it had begun. And in that moment, all across Earth, humans cried out her name. Children, soldiers, elders, all whispered, "Fight, fight, fight." Their voices reached her, and for the first time, she smiled through her blood. She rose again, her body glowing with the strength of billions. Her voice thundered across the battlefield. "I do not fight for myself, I fight for humanity." And with those words, the tide turned. She leapt into the sky, her figure blazing like a second sun. The Titan roared, swinging its claw, but she caught it with her bare hands, stopping a force meant to destroy cities. Her power surged, her glow spread across the world, and even the stars seemed to shine brighter. The council, watching from far away, felt fear sink into their bones. This was no ordinary woman. This was humanity itself, risen in one body. The beast tried to crush her again, but she struck with her full power at last. A surge of light tore through its chest, shaking the heavens. The Titan screamed, louder than storms, louder than war, but this time its cry was not of power. It was of pain. Its body cracked, its fire dimmed, its shadow faded. For the first time, the unstoppable beast stumbled, and human. ID saw it. They saw the monster that threatened to erase them brought to its knees by one of their own. Hope blazed across the planet, stronger than fear, and the woman, her body glowing like dawn, whispered to herself, "This is not the end. Not yet." The battlefield was fire and ruin, the sky painted red with smoke, the earth torn open like a wounded beast. The Titan roared one last time, its body cracked with light, its strength fading under the weight of the woman's power. Each breath it took shook mountains. Each step it tried to make split valleys. But its movements grew slower, weaker. For the first time in its eternal life, the monster built to erase civilizations felt fear. The woman stood before it, her body bloodied, her strength nearly drained. Yet her eyes blazed with fire brighter than any star, her spirit unbroken. She could hear the voices of humanity rising in her heart, billions whispering the same word, fight. And she knew this was the moment, the strike that would decide not only Earth but the fate of the galaxy. The Titan lunged with a final roar, its massive jaws glowing with fire meant to consume continents. But she lifted her hands, and the air itself bent. A storm of light burst from her body, wrapping the beast in chains of brilliance. It struggled, it thrashed. Mountains fell under its weight. Oceans rose in waves taller than towers, but it could not break free. The chains were not made of steel, they were made of will, the unshakable will of humanity. Her voice thundered across the battlefield, across the stars. You sent armies, you sent monsters, but you never understood. Humanity does not bow, humanity does not break. Her words reached every ear, alien and human alike, even soldiers hiding in bunkers, even counselors watching from their safe thrones, even species across the galaxy who had never seen a human before. All heard her voice. It was not just the voice of one woman, it was the voice of Earth itself. She raised her arms higher, her body glowing like a sun reborn. And with a cry that shook the heavens, she released her final strike. Light surged through the Titan, tearing it apart from within. Its roar turned into a scream of defeat. Its massive body cracked like shattered stone. Piece by piece, the monster dissolved into dust, its fire extinguished, its shadow gone. The ground fell silent as its remains scattered into the wind, and then, for the first time in days, there was silence. The alien armies that had once roared with confidence now stood frozen, their weapons falling from trembling hands. Their generals stared at the ruins of the beast, disbelief carved into their faces. They had brought the strongest armies, the deadliest weapons, the unstoppable Titan, and still, they were defeated by one human woman. Above, in the council chambers, the leaders of the galaxy could not speak. Their mouths hung open, their eyes wide, their arrogance shattered. They had promised Earth would fall in hours, yet Earth still stood. They had sworn humanity would be erased, yet humanity had been reborn stronger than ever. And the woman who made it possible looked at them through the stars, her whisper carried across their channels. Remember this day. Remember who you tried to destroy, and remember who stopped you. The galaxy trembled. Some species whispered in awe, calling her a savior. Others whispered in fear, calling her a weapon too dangerous to exist. But all agreed on one truth. Humanity was no longer prey, no longer weak, no longer alone. The Council, once untouchable, had been humiliated by the very race they had sought to erase. On Earth, survivors came out from shelters, their eyes filled with tears and wonder. Children pointed at the sky where the beast had fallen. Soldiers dropped their weapons and knelt, not in fear but in gratitude. The woman stood among them, silent, her glow fading, her breath heavy. She had carried a weight of billions. And though victory was hers, her body trembled with exhaustion. Yet even in her weakness, she smiled, because Earth lived, humanity endured, and the council had been broken. She turned, walking away from the battlefield, her figure disappearing into the smoke and light. No one dared to stop her. No one dared to follow. She did not seek crowns or thrones or worship. She sought only to protect. And when her steps faded, she became legend. Across the galaxy, stories spread like wildfire. They sent armies to end Earth in hours, but one human woman erased them in minutes. It became more than a tale. It became a warning. A single human had stood against the galaxy, and the galaxy had lost. The silence after the storm was heavy, filled not with despair but with respect, fear, and awe. Earth had survived, humanity had risen, and the woman had shown the universe what it meant to be human. And though her name was forgotten in history, her story was not. It lived in whispers, in songs, in the hearts of every child who looked at the stars. A reminder that humanity, no matter how small, no matter how fragile, could rise against the impossible and win.